Welcome back. Yes, welcome back, guys. It's Monday. Monday morning, baby. How are you guys doing? How was your guys' weekend? It is Motivation Mondays. I'm very excited about today's video, so I want you guys to sit down, enjoy your cup of coffee, not Diet Coke. Who drinks Diet Coke in the morning? They're absolutely nuts. So I want you to talk to you guys about the idea of less is more. And I'm not talking sexual stuff here, guys. Don't get nasty on me, okay? Jesus, calm down. All right, so less is more is very interesting because a lot of times in life, we tend to buy, or this is the most typical scenario. Most people, when they rent, then they go and they buy their first house. Then what they do is they sell their house to try to make some money. Then what do? They buy a bigger, more expensive house. Then in turn, when you buy that more expensive house or whatever, the house starts owning you, and you start working more hours, and then in turn you start having double jobs, you start going crazy, and something happens. So then you also have neighbors across the street that have a nicer car. They have nicer clothes. You have influences as you get a raise. You have bigger positions, so you get nicer clothes. You're in maybe corporate management. You start feeling like, wow, I need to start looking the part, and you spend more money. And things start changing. I'm not sure if some of you guys can relate to this, and I'll tell you kind of how I experienced it. When I was younger, starting my baseball card business, I really was still innocent that way. I really didn't know how the world worked in terms of the whole idea of status or money or anything. I just saw it as, hey, this is pretty cool. I enjoyed my hobby. I made some extra money. That was cool, right? But it wasn't until I actually worked at my corporate job where I realized that it was just something different than making money. It was something where the people there were the typical, and this was like corporate sales at FedEx, and FedEx is a very corporate company, very big company. And this is also Southern California too. So there was a lot of a lot of competition, inner competition for people to basically they had their job, and that was an identity thing. That was important to them. They really had to make certain kind of money. They had to feel like they drove that BMW or Mercedes, or they had to feel like they got there. They also wanted to make sure, hey, look, people wanted to have, especially sales, it's very competitive. You want to get higher numbers, you want to compete with the other person. And then there's this young kid, this young Asian kid, 24 years old at the time, basically just turned 24. I basically became like the best salesperson on their, on pretty much one of the best salespeople in Southern California, and it's part of the nation too. So I think a lot of the older people got very, I don't know if it's jealous, but it's almost like a dog taking a piss everywhere, all over the yard, and they just mark their territory. But this young gun just comes in, the little puppy comes away, and they're like, no, I don't want to talk to the puppy. I don't want to share my stuff with the puppy. The puppy just lives there and just, wants to, hey, why don't we work harder? Why don't we do these different things? Why don't we explore and try different things? But the older crowd, which is a majority of the people at FedEx and corporate America, the old guard generally, and I'm not talking about all positions, in the world. I mean, the culture that is in these corporate America positions tend to be different in different companies. I'm sure Google, Facebook are more startup companies. I think even Google, Facebook have probably adopted more of a corporate culture, but I'm talking more like true startup. This is your thing, getting out of the gate. So FedEx was more of that, good old boys, the good old boys club, like I know you, so when I performed well at FedEx, it didn't matter because ultimately they wanted to promote the people that's more tenured, even though their numbers were like the worst numbers. They wanted people there that could be puppets within their little sectors. And I talk about this in correlation to less is more, which is the topic of the video, because I'm noticing something. And this is the truth. Corporate mediocrity and corporate stability, keep your nose to the grindstone, look that one up, it's a good saying. Keeping under the radar, another saying I learned, is something that really runs rampant in that sector, in corporate America. And so what happens is you end up having less and it's more. Because what happens is you do less, but you end up getting more stability, more result, and more job security. There's guys on there at FedEx who've worked there for like 20 years. 20 years. Sales, cold calling, relationship calling, which is great. Shit, I couldn't do it. I couldn't drive around, take people to lunch and just, I don't know. I couldn't do it. So at the time, I realized, and I was very young. I was very I didn't realize, why is it that these people at FedEx work so slow and aren't motivated to just be more aggressive and let's take more business from the competitor. There isn't that many competitors. There's really USPS and UPS and some freight companies. But why don't we compete faster? Why don't we move at a rate that can grow sales? And I realized that in growth of numbers, you don't want sharp spikes necessarily. You want incremental growth for corporate America especially, because when you start doing that, the numbers start getting skewed. Imagine if all of the numbers for all the corporations just start spiking so fast. Sure, the stock will go crazy, but if you can't keep performing at that pace at a reasonable point, it gets bad. And so that's why sometimes just incremental growth, and you lose some, win some, but slow and steady wins the race. But you have to understand that the people in the culture of FedEx, in this example, really just want less work, just the same thing, the same customers, the same territory, the same people, the same warehouses, the same decision makers. Maybe they rotate, and they just, and to them it's more. So I gave you a couple examples there. One is the house, one is the job. And I think they have a relationship in some way. When you start your own business, let me give you this example. And this is the third example, is when you have a business and you talk about the less is more, many times this doesn't really work because business owners like myself and Rudy, we tend to be workaholics. I mean, it's true. We work, believe it or not, we work our ass off. We check our phone whenever we want. We make YouTube videos. We make phone calls. We're always on the phone. It doesn't matter if it's shipping. Doesn't matter if it's labeling. Doesn't matter if it's printing. Doing spreadsheets. Doesn't matter if it's taxes. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Go to the post office, FedEx. We do it all. And small business owners tend to have very little help because, especially in this industry, or they have help, but they're always still working. Especially like if you're in the restaurant industry, fashion, clothing, small business, like insurance, you're your own shop, right? You are basically starting on your own. So, but the workaholic mentality though, you realize that, and this is kind of a different effect, like you do all this work, but the less is more thing comes at a later point in your life. Because the theory is, if you work hard at your younger years or you're beginning your business, grow it, it gets to a point where you can sell it off, you can go, you can pass it on to your kids, whatever. Then it becomes like, hey, I can work less hours, or it's more of a asset-based business where it's like real estate, and I can have a management company, manage it, whatever. So that is a philosophy with entrepreneurs, is you can basically do a lot of work, invest yourself really hard. And I'm not saying you stop ever investing yourself or stop working, but you start taking time, like life changes. At first it becomes more like you do everything. But then eventually your assets or your wealth becomes like, hey, I've made that money. Like I've said this before, like you're working to trade money with time. So what you're doing is you've made enough money where you can finally trade their money with the time and then spend more time with your family. And then there's the scenario of the person that's just butt-ass lazy, who doesn't give a shit, and this is the fourth and last scenario, and they don't really want to work. This is kind of funny. My son, who's 10, stepson but son basically, I had him since he was 5, Scott. You guys probably see him on the YouTube videos playing old school Magic. He told us the other day, this weekend, like, I don't want to do my chores. We asked him, why not? He goes, well, because I don't feel like it. And I just want to be my own person. I just want to make my own decisions. Sounds like a teenager in my opinion. I go, so I asked him, well, do you want a dirty room? Do you like things dirty and not clean? He goes, no, I like them clean. I go, then who's going to do it? I go, well, I just wish someone would do it for me. What? So this conversation, it's the typical, right? Kids don't want to do homework. They don't want to do chores. And they're lazy. It breeds laziness. And at this age, it's a little different. It's not like an adult saying it. It's just like, I'm tired, right? And kids are overwhelmed very quickly. But I think it's really important to understand that there are actually adults that actually act in this way. And it's pretty sad. Because I'm not saying the adults that are lazy, just they're lazy, but the ones that are lazy and they expect and they're entitled and they expect more, they expect the government to hand them out. They expect their parents to give them everything. They expect their grandmother's parent to give them all the money and resources to eat. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually get out there and work. And unfortunately, the less is more comment is they have so little, but they want so little, they give so little to society in a way, in work or to a job, and they basically want everything. So it's kind of an interesting like play on less is more, but they're giving less and they're asking for so much more. So the question for the day is, and for Motivation Monday, is what really is the balance of less is more? Is it more about, what fits your lifestyle? What's the healthiest way? What is the most, and it's hard to answer this because everybody's in a different situation. You guys might be in a corporate America job. I'm in my own business. Everybody has multiple investments. There's different ways to look at it. I have to say, as I grew up, in my later 30s now, is that time with family is more important. It used to be where in my 20s, I'm trying to be a young slinger at FedEx, trying to, I didn't really call my mom that much. I was focusing on my career like most 20-year-olds do. But you start changing and you realize that time with family, time with people that you care about, friends and family. I'm excited to see Rudy and everybody at, Orlando, next year in February. And so you start realizing that time with these people, your friends, it doesn't matter who they are, whoever they are, just call them up, spend some time with them, ends up becoming more valuable than the more part of working all the time to achieve what? A house, a bigger house, a nicer car. But you also have to understand there is a need for transportation. There's a need for living. There's a need for retirement. There is a need to eat, right? And entertainment. So the balance of it all, of having a work ethic and everything, is something to consider. So this Motivation Monday is more in regards to you thinking about less is more in your life. Look at things in your life that are less and things that are more. Things that you could probably switch that around. Maybe how can I do less work and get more result, be more efficient? Or how can I give more to something, more time with your family, more time with everything, and then commit less resources and try to get more efficient with that because that's more valuable. I would say put in categories, what's most important, the top things that are important. And then write down what takes the resources, what are the time resources, what is the money resources. Because money is time, right? They all kind of fall together. So you have what's important, rank them. You can put 1, 2, whatever, 3, 4, 5, and then put, you know, what is the cost, the time, whatever, money. And then what you can do is you can start, say, the third column would be more like, how can I act upon that? What is the plan? I always talk about plan. My mom taught me this. It's probably one of her greatest teachings, is that she always asked me, Daniel, what's your plan? What's your plan for today? How are you going to get to college? What's your plan? And she was an engineer. You know, she's an engineer. So she always had plans. And I got to say, it works. It works really well. She's not a great business person, but the planning part has made me who I am today. So if you plan things, even though you can't act upon them, and you make the plans for each thing, you start thinking about, okay, I gotta give less, I gotta give more. So then on the fourth column, I lied, there's a fourth column, you write less or more. I gotta put less time, less resources, less money. What do I need to do here? Is it a less or a more? A less or a more? All right, guys, I hope you guys got something out of today's video. If you guys are, oh, by the way, essay contest, I've been putting the link below. If you're watching the videos, and remember, the essay contest ends October 15th. The link is below for all the details. I've been getting a lot of submissions, but they've been tapering off. I think the initial boom of people who got that message, you know, kind of ended. But I'm going to continually put that in every video now. Essay contest, if you want to meet me, Rudy, other YouTubers in Orlando or a Grand Prix, I'm offering a flight and hotel, 2 nights hotel, to anyone in the world. You have to write this essay. Go down below, take a shot at it. All right, guys, I hope you guys have a great Monday and a great week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. And there was no swearing in this video. See, I'm telling you, I'm learning.